So blink once if you know when Elder Scrolls 6 is coming out, but are not going to tell me.
Why should I live in history, huh? This is a world where nothing is solved. Well, someone once told me time is a flat circle. Everything we've ever done or will do, we're gonna do over and over and over again.
This is going to sound weird coming from me. Someone should make a sequel to Skyrim.
The Elder Scrolls 6, a game so mythical that a small whisper of its name, any scrap of news about its release, will spawn countless headlines and videos just trying to will it into existence. A game so long awaited that I was but a young Viking lad when I played the last entry, and have now grown into a jaded old Viking man. And I'm sure when it comes out, I'll be telling my grandkids about the glory days of the series. And since we recently celebrated the 6-year anniversary of the announcement trailer, with no updates since then, what better time to bring up the Elder Scrolls 6 again for shits and giggles? Now, in the past, an Elder Scrolls game would come out every few years with these massive technical jumps from entry to entry, with gigantic leaps in graphics, animations, and world building, which is even more impressive looking at how much relatively little time there was between these games, with only 4 years in between Morrowind and Oblivion, and 5 between Oblivion and Skyrim. And now, as of the time of recording this video, it's been more time between the teaser trailer for The Elder Scrolls 6 and today than there has been between either of these games. On top of the 13 years between the release of Skyrim and today. And where you possibly used to get 2 Elder Scrolls games in a console's lifetime, now we have to question whether we'll see 2 console generations come and go before we finally get to see the next mainline Elder Scrolls game. It's become such a meme at this point that I'm starting to wonder if maybe Bethesda and Rockstar just don't know the Roman numeral for 6. And while Bethesda has released some new games in these years, and even released the first new IP in 30 years, we still haven't seen or gotten any update or official time frame for when we might get the Elder Scrolls 6. So for this video, instead of trying to speculate on when that might be or theories on where the game might take place, I instead decided to look into the reasons why it's been so long since we've been able to adventure around Tamriel. So kick back, grab your sweet rolls, and maybe purchase another remaster while we're at it, while we go over why we haven't gotten the Elder Scrolls 6.
The Imperial throne sits empty, and from every corner, darkness grows. And as enemies rise faster than allies, salvation cannot come from one hero alone, but from many.
I think that one reason we haven't seen the next mainline Elder Scrolls game is because of the continued success of the Elder Scrolls Online. Now, before you all loose your arrows into my knee, let me get one thing clear and explain my argument. So, I want to clarify before the comment section goes wild to inform me. But Viking, Bethesda didn't make the Elder Scrolls Online, ZeniMax Online did. Okay, I know, but before you hit that dislike button so hard it sends me into the YouTube soul Karen, let me at least explain my argument. Alright, whew, I was getting a little nervous there. So while yes, ZeniMax Online did in fact make the Elder Scrolls Online, it's still reasonable to assume that Bethesda still helps, at least with advising the direction of the game, as Bethesda is not only the maker of the Elder Scrolls IP, but is also a subsidiary company of ZeniMax Media, and with constant updates and DLC, along with a massive, massive player base. I mean, come on, look at this chart. ESO is still one of the top 5 most played MMOs to this day, with peaks of 24 million players. Now, if I gave you a quiz and asked you to guess how much ESO has made, what would you guess? Most might guess hundreds of millions, maybe even 1 billion, right? Well, what if I told you that ESO has grossed over $2 billion in its lifetime? And with that kind of profit, and with a healthy player base still enjoying the game, it means that there's no real urgency to make the next entry when the spinoff is still making a pretty decent penny. So, with that in mind, ZeniMax and Microsoft don't need to pressure Bethesda for the next mainline entry. I mean, when you've got the golden goose, you don't exactly need to take it out back and give it the old Yeller treatment while it's still laying its golden eggs, you know? And don't get me wrong. I actually enjoy ESO, all right? I love hopping on with friends and going around wrecking havoc in the war for Cyrodiil. And it is a good thing that we have the Elder Scrolls Online to deliver fresh new Elder Scrolls content so that the fan base stays engaged with the franchise. So I'll never count fresh content as a bad thing.
You know, my brother once told me that nothing someone says before the word but really counts.
But for me, and for I'm sure a lot of other people, ESO isn't really a replacement for an actual Elder Scrolls game's gameplay. It doesn't have the same level of immersion as an actual RPG. And being an MMO, it's hard to get that same in depth quest design or the world design. And you really can't get into all the gruesome, dark parts of the Elder Scrolls lore because it still has to stay true to that rating. And while some people will agree with me on that, but they'll still say that because it's an MMO, it won't hurt the mainline franchise with its success. Well, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you guys to Warcraft 3. That used to be a series, not just an MMO, if you didn't know. And while that's just wild speculation, we of course do know that Bethesda is at least working on the Elder Scrolls 6. And even if ESO doesn't fully scratch that Elder Scrolls itch that we've been feeling, at least it continues to keep things fresh, you know? I mean, it remasters our love for the series. And if we just kept getting the same old thing, it would just get stale, right?
But we know that most of you came here for one thing. I think it's to see where we're putting Skyrim next.
Skyrim, very special edition. Also coming soon to Etch-a-Sketch.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.
It's no secret how much of a meme and just how many times Skyrim has been remastered at this point is. I mean, re-release after re-release after re-release. It's hard just to keep count at this point. Well, let's pull that count up anyway, shall we? I mean, we have Skyrim, Skyrim Legendary Edition, Skyrim Special Edition, Skyrim Anniversary Edition, Skyrim VR Edition, Skyrim Super fucking Legendarily Special Edition, Skyrim Adults Only Edition in VR. You guys get the picture. Not to mention the 9 different ports of this game. I mean, holy shit. And again, just like Rockstar, it seems that Bethesda must milk the 5th entry of their series completely dry until it's nothing but a shallow husk in a barn. And funny enough, I just wanted to mention that the Anniversary Edition celebrating Skyrim being 10 years old was also Oblivion's 15th anniversary. I mean, what a sack tap that instead of giving fans something they've been asking for years, to be able to play Oblivion again without needing LASIK eye surgery from just how goddamn bright that game is.
I'm afraid your journey ends here, traveler.
And instead, giving us Skyrim again is a wild move. Now, I've been going pretty hard on Bethesda here, so I have to say, because it is worth mentioning, that Skyrim is the game that propelled Bethesda up to their superstar levels of fame. And for a lot of people, it was their first introduction not only to the Elder Scrolls, but to RPG games altogether. I mean, back in the day, everyone and their mama, plus their grandma, were going out to buy a copy of Skyrim. And me, as a wee little Viking lad, wasn't able to buy a copy. Because now I'm old, and back in the day, you used to have to physically go out and buy a copy of a game. And I couldn't get Skyrim because it was always sold out. So I had to wait 2 goddamn months to buy it and play it because everyone wouldn't stop buying all the fucking copies of Skyrim. Okay, maybe I'm still a little jaded at that. But it does go to show just how popular this game was. And when you're a studio like Bethesda and you catch lightning in a bottle like that, you of course want to hold on to that feeling and never let it go. It's hard to leave it in the past and to look into the stars. Okay, okay, by now I'm sure you all see the theme. So let's just roll the clip.
It's hard to express how excited all of us at Bethesda are to be here with you today. We're so grateful you're spending the time, and we know you've waited a long time to finally see Starfield. It's easily our most ambitious game ever. Like our previous games, it's an epic role-playing game where you get to be who you want and go where you want.
If you're wondering if the killing gets easier, the answer is yes.
But this time, you'll be exploring space.
Do you know the way to Uranus?
Which gets us into our last point, the desire to make new IPs. Now here I feel for Bethesda. I'm sure that they didn't want to only be known as the Elder Scrolls and Fallout guys. So they set out to make their first new IP in 30 years, Starfield. And it didn't do as great as people had hoped. Which also sucks because of the amount of effort and ambition that went into this project, only to be met with setback after setback, having to create a whole new engine and design mechanics for a massive RPG that's supposed to be the size of a galaxy, only to fall flat because of what feels like overambition. It was just too much space to go to with not enough to do. I mean, faction quests were cool and building your own ship, but otherwise, most of the game felt like No Man's Sky on release. But I truly do believe that the reason Starfield didn't quite reach, well, the stars, was not because of greed, but because of overambition. Much like the famous old Halo 2 E3 demo, it was just a studio biting off more than they could chew. Well, what does this have to do with the Elder Scrolls 6? Well, because of Bethesda's continued support to try to get Starfield to what they wanted it to be, with a few hundred Bethesda employees still working on Starfield support, as well as Fallout 76, another project with a disastrous launch.
Oh man, that hand though.
What the fuck?
And already being a relatively small studio, that takes people away from working on the next Elder Scrolls entry to try to build up these IPs that they've already put out. And while I'm sure that's not the sole reason we haven't gotten the Elder Scrolls 6 yet, I'm sure all these reasons together each play a little small factor in why it's taken so long since we've gotten the next entry to the Elder Scrolls. Now, before we go, I want to take a second to wrap this up and to get serious for just a minute and to make one last point. And this one is directly to Bethesda Game Studios. If anyone working at Bethesda ever gets to see this, this is a message for you. Guys, while I've gone pretty hard for comedic reasons in this video, I have to say you guys are my home team. I grew up right down the road from the studio that made some of my favorite games that I clearly still love. I bought almost all the old guys growing up, and I've been playing these games since I was 8 years old. And over the course of researching for this video, I watched all the behind the scenes interviews, and it's clear that you all still have a love for what you do. And so I'm rooting for you to pull off the most amazing Elder Scrolls game we've seen yet. I mean, a game that'll bring back that magic of seeing Tamriel all over again for a whole new generation of gamers. And hopefully, it'll save my marriage along the way. But if you guys want a surefire way, the best way to build up hype for it, my advice is to sign my day one Skyrim poster from 2011. Guys, I promise, it'll be great. I only live 45 minutes away from the main studio. I can be there anytime, any day. No, wait, Todd, wait. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. And I hope I've given you some things to think about for why we haven't gotten the Elder Scrolls 6. I hope you enjoyed and had some laughs along the way. And if you did, let me know by hitting that like. And if you really, really enjoyed it, hit that subscribe button to see more in the future. And if you're from Bethesda, my offer still stands and my work email will be linked in the description. But guys, it's been real. So until the next time, remember, I'm the Virtual Viking, and I am out.